The young nurse had already lost feeling in her fingers when the black luxury sedan pulled up beside the freezing bus stop. Snow-like mist drifted through the cold morning air as she wrapped her thin cardigan tighter around herself, trying to ignore the painful shivers running through her body. Her shoes were soaked. Her hands were red from the biting wind. And she had no idea how she would make it through another 12-hour shift. Then the rear window rolled down. A man in an expensive charcoal coat looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite understand, concern, determination, and something deeper that she would only understand months later. His next words would change both their lives forever. "You're coming with me." Before we begin this unforgettable story, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who still believes kindness can change lives, and subscribe to Kindness Hub. If you believe people deserve second chances and that one small act of compassion can rewrite someone's future, let us know in the comments below. 26-year-old Maris Vale had spent the last 3 years caring for strangers while quietly falling apart herself. She worked as a night shift nurse at Riverside Community Hospital, a small medical center on the edge of the city that was constantly understaffed and overwhelmed. Every day, she comforted frightened patients, held trembling hands, and stayed long after her shifts ended because she couldn't bear leaving someone alone. Yet when her own life unraveled, there was no one waiting to hold her hand. 2 years earlier, her father had suffered a severe stroke that left him partially disabled. Medical bills swallowed their savings within months. Her younger brother had moved away looking for work, promising to send money that never came. Maris picked up extra shifts, sold her car, and moved with her father into a tiny apartment across town. Every morning after work, she prepared his medication, cooked his meals, and helped him through physical therapy exercises before finally collapsing into bed for a few hours of sleep. She never complained, not because life was easy, because she believed someone always had it worse. That winter had been especially cruel. Her landlord had raised the rent. Heating costs doubled. Her father's medication expenses increased again. 3 nights earlier, their aging water heater had broken completely. Maris had used almost everything left in her savings account to replace it, which was why she now stood alone at a nearly empty bus stop before sunrise, wearing a coat that wasn't warm enough and shoes with tiny holes hidden beneath the soles. She checked her phone. 3% battery. The next bus was delayed. Of course it was. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about how exhausted she felt. For the first time in years, she wondered how much longer she could keep pretending she was strong enough. A pair of headlights cut through the gray morning. A sleek black sedan slowed to a stop. Maris immediately stepped back. She had learned long ago not to trust unexpected kindness. The rear passenger window lowered. Inside sat a man in his late 30s with sharp features, dark hair, and tired eyes that somehow looked familiar. His tailored suit and expensive watch suggested a life completely different from her own. But his expression held no arrogance, only concern. That he asked if she worked at Riverside Community Hospital. Confused, Maris nodded. The man explained that he had seen her leaving the hospital nearly every morning for the past few weeks while driving home from work. That he had also noticed she was always carrying extra bags, always looked exhausted, and never seemed to wear a proper winter coat. Today, seeing her shivering in the freezing wind had finally convinced him to stop. Maris thanked him politely but declined the ride. The man nodded as though he had expected her answer. Then he stepped out of the car. His driver quickly opened an umbrella, but the man ignored it. Instead, he removed his heavy wool coat and carefully placed it around her shoulders. The warmth shocked her. So did his next words. That he told her he had once spent months in a hospital room watching someone he loved fight for her life. During that time, one nurse had treated his family with extraordinary compassion. That he never forgot what that kindness meant. Now he saw the same kindness in her every morning, and he couldn't drive away pretending not to notice she needed help, for reasons she couldn't explain. Maris finally agreed. His name was Corwin Ashford. He was the founder and CEO of one of the city's largest renewable energy companies. But at that moment, he didn't seem like a powerful executive. He simply seemed human. During the drive, Maris learned that Corwin's mother had died 6 years earlier after a long battle with heart disease. Her nurse had stayed with her long after shifts ended, speaking gently and offering comfort during the hardest nights. Corwin had built a successful company, but losing his mother had taught him something money couldn't buy. Success meant very little if you ignored people who needed compassion. When they arrived at the hospital, Maris tried returning his coat. He refused. He said she clearly needed it more than he did. She protested, but he simply smiled before heading back to his car. For the rest of her shift, she couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had noticed her struggle when everyone else had been too busy to look. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed unexpectedly. Sometimes Corwin would bring coffee to the emergency department waiting room after visiting his company's nearby construction sites. Other times he would simply wave as she finished work. There was never pressure, never expectations, just small acts of kindness. For Maris, those moments became bright spots in otherwise difficult days. For Corwin, seeing her reminded him that genuine strength often looked nothing like wealth or status. That it looked like a tired nurse who spent her nights helping strangers and her days caring for her father. He learned about her circumstances gradually, not because she complained, because he noticed: the worn-out shoes, the old phone held together by tape, the exhaustion she tried so hard to hide. One afternoon, after dropping off coffee for the hospital staff, Corwin saw Maris struggling to carry groceries and medical supplies through heavy rain. Without hesitation, he offered to help. That was the first time he met her father, Aldrin. The older man welcomed him warmly. Their apartment was small but spotless. Family photographs covered the walls. Despite his health struggles, Aldrin smiled often. Corwin quickly understood where Maris got her resilience. Over tea, he listened as father and daughter joked with each other, making the best of difficult circumstances. When he left that evening, something inside him shifted. For years, his world had revolved around board meetings, investor calls, and endless deadlines. Yet the tiny apartment filled with laughter felt warmer than his empty penthouse ever had. Weeks turned into months. Their friendship deepened. Naturally, Corwin arranged flexible transportation for Maris without making it feel like charity. He connected Aldrin with a specialist who adjusted his treatment plan. Quietly, he used his influence to help without taking away their dignity. Maris resisted at first. She had spent so long carrying every burden alone that accepting help felt unfamiliar. But Corwin never treated her like someone who needed saving. He treated her like someone worthy of care, and that made all the difference. One afternoon, Maris received devastating news. Budget cuts at Riverside meant several nurses would lose their positions. Despite her excellent record, her limited seniority placed her on the list. After everything she had sacrificed, losing her job felt unbearable. She sat alone outside the hospital fighting back tears. Corwin found her there. For the first time since meeting him, Maris admitted she was scared. Scared she wouldn't afford rent. Scared she would fail her father. Scared she had nothing left to give. Corwin listened quietly. Then he reminded her of something she had forgotten. The value of a person could never be measured by a paycheck. He told her about the countless lives she had changed, the patients who trusted her, the families she comforted, the hope she gave others every single day. Those things mattered, more than she knew. A week later, Corwin introduced her to the director of a new community health initiative funded by his company. The program focused on providing affordable home healthcare services to elderly residents. They needed compassionate nurses who understood what families experienced outside hospital walls. Maris was offered the position immediately. The schedule allowed her more time with her father, the salary was better, and for the first time in years, she could finally breathe. Months later, spring sunlight poured through the windows of the community center where Maris now worked. Flowers bloomed outside, children laughed nearby. Life no longer felt like something she was merely surviving. It felt hopeful again. Aldrin's health improved steadily. Maris smiled more. She slept through the night, and Corwin remained by her side through every step forward, not as a millionaire rescuing someone in need, but as a man who had chosen kindness when it would have been easier to look away. On the anniversary of the morning they met, Corwin took Maris to the same bus stop. Winter had long disappeared. Warm sunlight replaced freezing winds. Cars passed by as people hurried through ordinary routines, unaware of how extraordinary a single moment could become. Maris looked at the bench where she had once stood, exhausted and hopeless. She remembered feeling invisible, forgotten, alone. Then she looked at the man beside her, the one who had seen her, really seen her, and everything changed. Because sometimes the greatest miracle isn't money. It isn't success. It isn't power. Sometimes the greatest miracle is simply being noticed. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists, and subscribe to Kindness Hub for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. Special request: comment below with one act of kindness someone showed you that you'll never forget. Maris often thought about that freezing morning and the words that changed her life. You're coming with me, not because she needed someone to rescue her, but because everyone deserves someone who refuses to let them face life's hardest moments alone. And somewhere tonight, someone may be standing at their own bus stop, carrying burdens no one else can see. Be the person who notices, because one small act of kindness can become the beginning of someone else's new life, and sometimes, it can become the beginning of yours too.